Excellencies, distinguished ambassadors and guests, we are here at the Tel-Aviv military compound, the seat of the Humanitarian Coordination Center, headed by Brigadier General Baruch Spiegel. The briefing will be given by Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mrs. Livni, and after the opening remarks, we will ask kindly the press to leave this place so that the briefing of Mrs. Livni can continue. And after Mrs. Livni, Brigadier General retired Baruch Spiegel will give his briefing, and it will be followed by a briefing by Colonel Alex Rosenzweig from COGAT, the Coordination of Government Activities in the Territories. I now have the honor to invite Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs to deliver a speech.
Okay, thank you and welcome to the Joint Humanitarian Operations Cell. As you know, we are after 12 days of fighting against terror in Gaza Strip. Israel decided, after years in which Israel was under attacks from Gaza Strip, to act against terror. The Israeli operation aimed to target terrorists and to give Hamas a message that we change the equation. Until the operation, the equation was that Hamas targets Israel, they target civilians, they're doing whatever they want in order to threaten Israeli civilians, and Israel decided to change the equation, and the meaning is that Israel is not going to take any longer a situation in which its citizens are under threat. And this is something that was already achieved, I hope, during this operation, because since Hamas knows now that Israel is not going to accept it, and we are going and we act and we are going to act accordingly in the future. This is one thing. The other is, of course, to stop and to have a cessation of missiles and firing at Israel. This is something that Israeli civilians suffered from for 8 years, and this needs to be stopped. This is what we are doing in the military operation. Need to understand, we are acting against Hamas. We are acting against terrorist organization. We are acting against a terrorist organization that is willing to accept the international requirements, to accept the right of Israel to exist, to renounce violence and terrorism, and to accept formal agreements between Israel and the Palestinians. Hamas doesn't represent any legitimate interest of the Palestinians. In a way, he took hostage the Palestinians in Gaza Strip, and this is the reason, while acting against Hamas, against terror, we are trying to take all the necessary steps in order to help in terms of humanitarian, and this is what we are going to discuss here today. This is the reason that we decided to have this joint humanitarian operations cell. Joint means between IDF, between the Foreign Ministry, and between you. We are familiar with the need to be in touch, to give information, to open humanitarian corridors, and to do whatever it takes in order to make the distinction between the organization which governs Gaza Strip and between the population. As well as, while targeting Hamas, we try to avoid civil casualties, but unfortunately, during this kind of war, sometimes there are those who pay the price, because Hamas, as you're well aware of, is hiding among civilians. They target Israel from schools, from different places, and in a way, while fighting back, these casualties can happen, even though we try to avoid this. I'd like to make another important distinction. Since I know that while we are here, I know that there are discussions in the Security Council, and I have phone calls from different foreign ministers asking, on one hand, to keep the humanitarian situation in good terms, and this is something, of course, that Israel accepts. This is according to our values. This is what we do. But there is one thing that needs to be understood. This is a fight against terror. This is the same battle, the same war, ongoing war, long war, that the international community is doing in different parts of the world. And there are different coalitions of states that are fighting terror. It takes time, but there is one thing that needs to be understood. At the end of the day, we are not going to make agreements with terror. The battle is against terror. And in order to have peace and quiet in this region is to defeat terror and not to have agreements with them. The only thing that the international community needs to do in order to change the equation is to work together against terror, to have agreements between us in order to defeat terrorism, and not to expect Israel to find a way to reach a treaty with Hamas. This is not going to happen. Before that, Hamas needs to accept the requirements of the international community. And I would like to ask you and your states not to put Israel and Hamas in the same wording. Hamas is a terrorist organization who is looking for civilians to kill, and Israel is a state that needs to act in order to defend itself. It shouldn't be used in the same wording. This is the basic understanding for this operation. I know that it takes time, but the need to defeat terrorism needs time. It can be one operation, it can be more than that. We need to give an answer, as I said before, to change the equation, to stop the firing, and to end the situation in which the day after Hamas is going to rearm. Rearmament of Hamas is something that nobody can afford, and this is the reason why smuggling of weapons needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed before it comes to Gaza Strip. It needs to be addressed not only by Egypt, but I think that the international community can contribute to this. And this is one of the most important things that we need to address, all of us, not only by military operation, but in this is a shared interest. Now, I know that there were some difficulties during the last days in terms of the need to open a corridor. I need you to understand that, for example, when Israel opened a humanitarian corridor in terms of time, Hamas used it in order to target Israel at the same time in which Israel helped and stopped the fire. So this is something that we are doing unilaterally, because we need to address your requests and the request of the humanitarian organization, and we are doing so. But you need to understand that while we are doing so, on the other side, they are, like always, abusing the willingness of Israel to work and to give an answer to the humanitarian needs. So I hope that we have your understanding on the complexity of working of this work in order to help. Now I think that this is for now. And I'll give the floor to Baruch Spiegel, and if there are some questions.
The members of the press are kindly requested to leave the place.